Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonifati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and Dog TV.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pets Add Life, the only podcast where you get me, Chris Bonifati, and Kristen Levine, the best xylophone player in Xavier, Kansas. Kristen,
oh my gosh. Oh, the X. Very good.
The
That was
X's
very
were
good.
tough. I had to tell lies.
It's okay.
I don't know if you play xylophone.
Most of the other intros are lies too, so.
I did a Google search. I was like, towns in America that begin with X. And it was very small. So I've decided Xavier, Kansas gets the win. So if you are from a town in the United States that begins with an X, we want to hear from you. I want to know all about it. I want to know your town's history. But until then, we've got a pretty awesome show lined up for you guys. Kristen, why don't you give them a rundown on how this works for everybody who might be new?
Sure. So this show, we have two stories. We have two guests. Oops, that's four. Two guests, two stories, two products that we share with you, and two questions from our listeners.
That is correct. And Kristen, the media-trained, ever-professional, probably knows all about it. I have not looked at the document, folks. I have not looked at it.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't looked at it at all. Ron even sent it early. He gave us plenty of time.
Yeah. That's what I love about this partnership, because we are total opposites. Like, you cannot prepare and just wing it and go, and I have to prepare. I'm like, I don't know, kind of OCD that way.
I spent all my time preparing that xylophone joke, and it fell flat. So we're coming in with limited momentum, absolutely limited momentum. I hope everybody enjoys. We're gonna get right into it and start off with story time.
Kristen and Chris present Story Time.
All right. So how do you have a story ready for the show if you're not preparing?
I did not say I didn't prepare. I said I didn't open the document, which contains like the names of the guests and the questions
That's
the
different.
audience is going to be asking. But like,
Gotcha.
All right, I'll share my incredibly well prepared story first, because I don't want you to steal it. We are celebrating my favorite time of the year, because I believe if you are listening to this, it is June 3rd, right? It's June 3rd if you're listening to this.
No, it's the 27th of May.
It's the 27th of May?
Yeah, it is. We're not in June yet.
I messed it up. No, I've got a different story. If you want to know what I'm going to do for June, you're going to have to stick around for next week, folks.
That's right.
But luckily, I've got another one here. This is also a very cute. This is a very cute story. We've brought up the dodo a bunch of times for our stories here. So the dodo has a little series they call Blind Dates, where they send a celebrity on like a blind date with a pet. And I had to click on this link immediately when it came up on my phone, because it was Scarlett Johansson, which is an instant click every single time for a young man like myself. And she went on a blind date with a pitty mix named Ocean, who was pulled from an overcrowded New York City shelter. The link will be in the show notes. It's complete with plenty of pictures. Scarlett Johansson brought Ocean a bouquet of roses, but it was like a toy, like it was like a dog toy bouquet of roses. And they went on a date to the dog park. And I just think these are awesome partnerships that use celebrities to show just how lovable rescue dogs can be, because celebrities are often associated with those purebred, very expensive breeder dogs. And I've seen Ryan Gosling do this stuff. I mean, Dave Portnoy from Barstool, very well known, with Miss Peaches adopting a rescue dog. And I just think it's really cool to use your celebrity to draw attention to these overcrowded shelters. And good on the dodo for making it like a very fun event and making it like very clippable for social media. The dodo loves their 60-second clips and stuff like that. It's very shareable and gets the word out. So great job, everybody involved. If you are looking for a pet, check out your shelters. Try to adopt if you can. I guarantee you that right animal is just waiting for you.
Love it. That's a good one. I love the dodo too. I like to go there to find stories. And I actually was preparing for the show today and I Googled the dodo and I saw this listing, like the fourth listing down, it said the Dodo restaurant. I'm like, oh my God, cool. This is going to be my story. The Dodo opened a restaurant. Well, I click into it and it has nothing to do with
it's
the
just
dodo.
It's just
a name,
a restaurant called the Dodo.
I was bummed out.
It's
Yeah.
bad.
Anyway. Okay. So my story is more of an educational one. And this came about because I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Ernie Ward quite a bit yesterday. We were talking about pet obesity and, he's got this awesome website. It's the Association for Pet Obesity Prevention. I probably mentioned it on the show before, but I just wanted to remind our listeners and viewers to check it out because they have so many cool resources. And one of the resources I wanted to share is that they do this survey every year. And the most recent survey shows some progress and some challenges when it comes to dealing with pets' weight issues. And just to kind of set the table, excess weight in our dogs and cats significantly increases their risk of developing serious health conditions, just like in people, like diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, etc. And so pet obesity is not a cosmetic concern. It's a serious medical condition that can ultimately shorten the lifespan of your pet. So, but the good news is that more pet parents, they found in this survey that more pet parents now recognize when their pets are overweight. 35% of dog owners and 33% of cat owners report that their pets are overweight or obese, which is up from just 17% and 28% just 1 year earlier. So that's quite a bit of progress. But the interesting thing is that they also surveyed veterinarians, and a lot of veterinarians are really hesitant to talk to pet owners about their pet's weight because they're afraid they're going to make them feel bad, like, oh, I'm a bad pet owner. So they're encouraging both veterinarians to feel more comfortable approaching the weight topic and also encouraging pet parents to bring up the topic if your vet doesn't bring it up. And you can ask for a body condition score, which I want to put this link in the show notes because it gives you a visual to use to help you determine at home if your dog or cat is overweight or obese or perfect weight or underweight. So I'll drop that link in the show notes. So check it out. And I was able to look at it and determine that Tulip's like a 7. Like she's going up the scale there. So it's a 1 to 9, I think, is the scale. So we're going to be working on Tulip's weight. And anyway, I just thought that was a great resource I wanted to remind everybody about. It's the Association for Pet Obesity Prevention. So
for whatever reason, I just got an image of Tulip in like a headband and a baggy sweatshirt and leg warmers doing like jazzercise. That must be really exhausting. Because I'm just like, yeah, like Tulip getting into shape is like a Rocky montage. Like it's very 80s coded.
Leg warmers. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You're going to put a cassette tape in, like a cassette tape in, watch a video with like, what's that guy's name from like the late 80s?
Richard Simmons.
Richard Simmons, right? Yeah. You're going to put a Richard Simmons tape on for Tulip.
Oh, she's going to hate me.
Beyond the Leash, exploring the untold stories of pet passion and professionalism.
I am absolutely honored and thrilled to welcome Dr. Brian Hare onto the podcast. He's a professor of evolutionary anthropology and psychology and neuroscience at Duke University. I said there'd be no long words in this intro, but there we go. I'm already breaking promises. Where he co-founded the Duke Canine Cognition Center. Renowned for his groundbreaking research on dog intelligence and human-animal communication, Dr. Hare is the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, The Genius of Dogs, and the international bestseller, Survival of the Friendliest. His work has been featured in major media outlets and the Nat Geo Wild series, Is Your Dog a Genius? Everybody's nodding yes. Yes, they are. Dr. Hare, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today.
Christine, what a pleasure to be with y'all.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into it. This is a very interesting career path, not just getting involved in, pets or animal industry, but the study of canine cognition. So what sparked your interest in studying, canine cognition, and how did it lead to the founding of the Duke Canine Cognition Center?
Well, I think the short version is that we, as scientists, were trying to understand the development of humans and human psychology. And we were thinking a lot about primates, our closest primate relatives, to help us understand how we might be similar or different from other animals. And it ends up that dogs have a lot to teach us in the same way. And there was a big surprise that dogs, in their way that they communicate with us, are very human-like, and in a way that primates are not. And so that was a big shock to the scientific world. And so because dogs have this sort of genius in communicating with us that we don't see in other animals, it opened up the door and got lots of people excited in a way they hadn't been, to understand who are these beings living with us and why are they so socially adept and how do they get that way?
Yeah. And I was watching one of your videos where you're talking about each animal has its own genius. And I wanted to ask you, in your research, how did dogs' social intelligence and their ability to understand our human gestures, how does that compare to that of our closest primate relatives?
So I've spent a lot of time with chimpanzees and bonobos, and count many bonobos and chimpanzees as my good friends. And they are wonderful and they are brilliant, and they can run circles around me. Many times cognitively, they can solve all sorts of problems that anybody who loves animals and ever watched a documentary about, chimpanzees or bonobos knows. But they have this thing that they can't do. And they're really not very good at understanding when you're trying to help them with communicative gestures. If you try to tell them where something is or help them find something, they don't really understand what you're doing. They can't imagine that you'd be so helpful, basically. And kids around, it's true, and kids around 9 to 12 months of age, they have this new understanding of the world where they realize that when you gesture, you're trying to teach them something, trying to help them. Your intention is, to really do something that will allow you to work together. And it ends up that dogs can do that too. And it's a big surprise why our distant relative can do something our close relatives can't.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And, one of the big differences that I understand between dogs and other wild animals is we've spent so much time with them. We've domesticated them. We've bred them in a certain way. So can you share some insights on how that domestication, these years and years and centuries of our influence on dogs, how that's impacted their cognitive abilities and their relationship with human beings?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we've learned through our research is that dogs, or I should say wolves, a population of wolves actually chose humans. And it was through natural selection that domestication was sparked. So basically, some friendlier wolves decided that they could live off human garbage and waste. And it was easier than getting kicked in the face or chasing elk or caribou that they may or may not catch. And it created this new opportunity, this new ecological possibility for friendlier wolves. And it set off this natural selection process that kickstarted dog domestication. So obviously we've had a hand in controlling the reproduction of dogs for several hundred years, especially if you're talking about the Western world, and created all these breeds we're familiar with and obsessed with. But really, for thousands of years, dogs lived with us without much human control of their reproduction. And it was natural selection. It was through a natural process of evolution that dogs evolved from wolves.
Dr. Hare, you've written some incredible books, bestsellers, The Genius of Dogs, Survival of the Friendliest, but your newest book is one that I'm really excited about. It's called Puppy Kindergarten, The New Science of Raising a Great Dog. I'm excited because my husband and I have been talking about getting a puppy. We haven't pulled the trigger yet, but now I know I've got to read this
book. Big news announced on the podcast.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not setting a timeline yet, but I definitely want to hear more about this book.
Well, thank you. We're really excited about it. We wrote the book because we raised and studied over 100 puppies, 101 actually, and with the goal of trying to understand both how cognitive abilities that are important for training, and especially for training that results in work, whether it's service or detection work, how those cognitive abilities first develop and what early experiences might shape their development. And so the book is all about what we found. And we worked with Canine Companions, the largest service dog provider in the country, and we raised and studied 101 of their puppies. The puppies were raised in two different ways, and believe it or not, no one has ever scientifically compared groups of puppies raised in slightly different ways to see what impact that has on their development. And we learned a whole bunch of things on the way, not just scientifically, but also just how to raise dogs and survive the sleep deprivation and their, struggle to, be house trained. And it was so many good lessons and even personal experiences of failure that we can share through our failure. Man, these are the things strategies you want to use, and these are the ones you want to avoid. So it's all in there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I gotta ask. I'm always really interested in science and the way it works. In fact, one of my monikers on the show is Crispy the Science G. Thanks, Bill Nye. And so you're talking about these studies and this research, and I could see how the experiments might work. But what are you measuring? Right? What are you recording? What type of data are you pulling in when you're doing this sort of thing? Because cognition is such an abstract concept. So what are you actually mapping to kind of get these results and publish it in a way that makes sense to an idiot like myself?
What a cool question. I mean, historically, animals were studied through the lens of sort of how can you study a pigeon or a rodent?
Yeah.
And then dogs were sort of like, oh, let's do the same games that are done with pigeons and rodents. And, they learn kind of the same way. Why do we need to study dogs? But the big breakthrough was that there are people who study children and how kids develop. And remember that, we weren't born with language and we still had cognition. We were still thinking and having all sorts of problem solving abilities when we were first born and before we could speak. And so there's lots of people who study humans before they're able to talk, trying to understand how they think. And so we took those kinds of games and they were played with young infants, and we started playing them with animals and including dogs. And that's how we were able to arrive at conclusions about how they understand intentions or how they understand communication, their memory, their self-control. But basically, they're searching for stuff, they're searching for toys or food, and we can look at how they make choices, and it allows us to understand how they think about the world, or sometimes how they don't.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. Have you observed any significant cognitive differences between dog breeds, or is intelligence more individual than breed specific?
I love that question. Yes. So I think we all have a strong feeling that breed, which effectively is what the dog looks like, is going to communicate a lot about a dog's behavior. And it does. But when it comes to cognition, it actually surprisingly tells us very little. Because within any one breed, there's so much variability that it overlaps with all the other breeds. And so it's not that, there's one breed that's somehow brilliant and the other breed that's not. And so it's a much more interesting, complicated story.
Yeah. So would you say each breed has its own genius, or, how, because those studies that show that, I think it was I can't remember, German Shepherd, or I can't remember what the smartest breed was, but how much truth is there to that? And what are you gauging their intelligence on?
Well, the main study that people cite when they rank dog breeds in a hierarchy of intelligence is actually a study where 100 people were asked about their opinion. And then they ranked dogs based on people's opinion. And so what I'm telling you is when we actually go measure dogs, real dogs, and have them solve problems, I'm not interested in your opinion. I want to see what they
Right.
actually do.
Right.
Then there isn't a rank that we can rank. And so people have strong ideas and opinions about ranking dogs, but the truth is that when you go look at it, it isn't. And your point about, well, are there different geniuses? Absolutely. One of the ones that I can quickly talk about is small dog versus big dog. We know that larger dogs, for instance, have better self-control, but smaller dogs are more clever in terms of using your attention and where you're not looking or where you are looking to deceive you and, sort of disobey. So while they have less self-control and they're less likely to say, oh, I shouldn't do what you told me not to do, they're like, but when I do disobey you, I'm going to do it in a really clever way.
Yes. And yes, you're talking about my dog, my little manipulator who's sitting right next to me.
Yes. Tulip the gaslighter.
Yeah, right here. Right here she is.
Yeah, there she is. Look at her.
So,
she's very good
all
at
innocent.
There she is. Hello, Tulip. So the big division is between small and large dogs, especially in terms of the differences we found related to breed.
That's
okay.
That's
well, that's
awesome.
good news for the Afghan hound, because I think they were ranked last on the opinion survey, which I didn't realize it was an opinion survey.
You hear that, Afghan hound? According to Dr. Brian Hare, you could get into that traditionally German Shepherd University. You could get in. You study hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because what it's all about is it's more about us in the end than it is about the dogs. Is that we have an expectation that the appearance of dogs is going to tell us about their intelligence. And we're really excited about that idea. And people have been really willing to accept that finding. And it's just so funny because if you actually go back to the original paper, they just asked 100 people, what do you think? And and it was really about obedience, which dogs were most trainable and most obedient, not even about who has the best memory or who has the best inferential reasoning, who's the best communicator, who has empathy. There were no questions like that. And so it's really just this sticky idea that has been, because it was first, and I think it resonated with people's expectations. It's stuck.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think as people, we conflate obedience and discipline with intelligence. I think, some of the smartest dogs are the little troublemakers, right? Like that dog that could open your pantry and, get into the food and put it away and close the door. That's intelligence. Yeah, you're trying to train them to not do it, but that's a problem that they're solving to get something that they want. And I do think that there's this bias where we think that a well-trained dog is inherently smarter when that's not necessarily the case.
Absolutely. And in fact, we've worked a lot, and the Puppy Kindergarten is all about, the book is all about trying to make predictions about which dogs might be great service dogs, and trying to make that prediction in the youngest dog possible. And some of our data suggests that really dogs that are performing really well on some of our tasks are less likely to make it. So basically it just is saying dogs that are, quote, smarter, and that actually dogs that fail a couple of our tests are more likely to make it. And how's that? Well, the particular task involves understanding causal properties of the physical world, that solid objects don't pass through each other. And failing that task actually is a good sign. It means you don't understand how the world works. And our interpretation of this is that because they don't understand, they're always asking humans for help. And so they really are more dependent on the person they're with. And so they're super communicative. And it means that, the person they're serving is going to have a very attentive dog, because I need to have that conversation with you. We're doing this together because I can't do it on my own.
I don't have object permanence or self-awareness. I don't understand anything.
Exactly.
Help me, please.
Exactly. Let's do this together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So before we let you go, Dr. Hare, I want your general thoughts on the future with dog cognition, canine cognition, and where it's going. Do you have any big studies that you may be undertaking, or is there anything out on the horizon that people may be reading in a couple of years that will absolutely astound them?
Yeah, I think between people are very excited about button pushing and the research on
Yeah.
the research I just described to you was all about dogs comprehending us, and now people are very excited about dogs being able to communicate in interesting ways. So that might be a fun one to pursue. Obviously, our work in the puppy kindergarten that we talked about, where we're trying to make predictions about who a dog might be when it grows up, how better to raise a dog, and I think most of the exciting stuff is about how dogs develop, and do different breeds develop differently? Do they, how, and what does that mean for how we raise them? And how can we give dogs sort of a cognitive advantage as they develop? So I think those will be sort of the areas that people are pursuing. And I think just the final exciting thing is that, when I first opened the Canine Cognition Center, we were the first in the United States that was dedicated on-campus center. And now they're everywhere, and it's wonderful. Some of them are my students, some of them are other people's students, and it's a growing area, and I think we're going to learn more and increasingly fast. So for a dog lover, it's a great time to be excited about dog science.
That sure is. Well, tell our listeners and viewers where we can find more about your work and where we can get the new book, Puppy Kindergarten.
So Puppy Kindergarten is available anywhere books are sold. So that's easy. And if you, I have a website, it's brianhare.net, and you can find more there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Hare. It's been a great discussion, and we look forward to learning more about what you're up to next.
Thank y'all. Thank you so much.
You know what I really learned from that, Kristen?
What's that?
I shouldn't have gone to business school. I should have gone to science and gotten a really cool, interesting job like Dr. Hare. Instead, my job is to talk to and ask questions of the people with cool jobs. So, such is life, though. C'est la vie.
Well, there's still time.
There's still, okay, sure, yeah. There's still time.
It might
Chris.
take you a little longer.
Oprah didn't become famous till she was 40. Morgan Freeman didn't get his first role till he was 61.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
I'm stuck on this microphone forever. I got bills to pay. Tiger needs her fancy feasts. I can't go back to school.
Oh, Chris.
It's all right. I'm happy.
We need to get Chris some happy pills.
See, everybody? I'm happy. Look how happy I am.
Join me in welcoming our guest, Beth Bigler. She's a certified pet loss grief counselor and founder of Honoring Our Animals, an online counseling service supporting individuals before, during, and after the loss of a beloved animal companion. And I know all of our listeners can certainly relate to this experience. Now, with a background in writing and over 2 decades in the entertainment industry, Beth combines her creative expertise with compassionate counseling to help clients navigate the profound grief of pet loss. Welcome, Beth.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for helping to normalize and validate pet loss grief.
Yeah, like I said, we've all been through it as pet parents, and it's such a difficult time. And I love that we're talking today about the support that is available for those who are going through this difficult time, and even in anticipation of the difficult time. So, but first question I wanted to ask you is, what led you to this place to want to specialize in pet loss grief counseling?
Well, not every little girl wakes up in the morning and thinks, I want to be a pet loss grief counselor with their life. So, of course, it wasn't that path for me. I did have a lovely career as a writer and film and television professional for many years. And along the way, of course, I met my soulmate, Arnie. Here's Arnie. And Arnie, absolutely most wonderful relationship of my life, my rock, my anchor through my 20s, through lots of ups and downs and cross-country moves and relationships and all those things. And, Arnie taught me a lot about self-worth and a lot about being okay just as I am, and acceptance and love. And so Arnie is and was my whole world. And when he was only 11, he got a really crappy prognosis on a bad cancer. And it was then that I reached out to get my own pet loss grief counseling support, because I didn't know how to show up for him. I didn't know how to help him die. I didn't know if I could go on if he was not earthside. So in doing my pet loss grief counseling, I was amazed at how powerful and effective the work was. And we also kind of did a Hail Mary chemo thing for Arnie, and he got a remission, which felt like a miracle. Wow. But even then, I kept working with my pet loss grief counselor, because I was like, this is so incredible. I'm learning more about our relationship, why he's so important to me, what this loss may mean. And unfortunately, about a year after his initial diagnosis, he actually had another cancer that was very aggressive. And I only had about 3 days notice before I had to make the decision to euthanize. And so that was a blindside because it was a different cancer, and I was very unprepared. But it was in that moment that I realized, you know what? I was able to show up for him because of that good work I did in my grief counseling. And now I want to take this mission to others and help other people. So I began the process of sort of transforming my whole life so that Arnie and I can go support other people during their worst moments. And now I opened my practice and started my Instagram, and I've seen over 1,000 clients, and I love what I do.
Wow.
And it's something Arnie and I get to collaborate on each and every day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's obviously very difficult work. It's not exactly all sunshines and rainbows over there on your side of the street. But when it comes to, the grief associated with losing a pet, what are some of the things that are most misunderstood about either our emotional responses or, the path forward towards recovery and normalization?
It's a great question. I think for many people, they are aware, but not fully aware, perhaps, until this moment comes, that their relationship with their beloved might be one of the most intimate and loving of their lives. The physicality we have with our beloveds, the proximity, the understanding, the loyalty, the acceptance, that is all unmatched. And then we have a lot of research-backed evidence that this type of grief can actually be more intense some ways than human loss. And because of that, many people feel shameful about it, or they feel guilty. They're like, why am I so upset about this? And people often end up invalidating themselves, even though it makes complete sense. They're woven into every aspect of our daily routine. Our brains love that routine. So one aspect of this that's so hard is the adjustment, the adjustment to having a space that is not shared by them. And of course, we have many symptoms that we experience. We have, brain fog and discombobulation and feelings of shock and relief. And we might have physical symptoms and the longing and the sorrow. And paramount for many guardians, unfortunately, is guilt. Many people, because our beloveds are our entire responsibility and their care is in our trust, we have to make all the decisions for them. And very often we feel like maybe we could have done more or should have done more or wanted to do more. So those are some of the hard things people are experiencing. And one of the things that I like to help people with, in addition to coping with those symptoms and helping discover aspects of identity, because so much of our identity is also entwined with our beloveds, the number one thing I want my clients to feel is that they can remain connected with their beloveds, so that this moment of their relationship, yes, it's different, things have changed, but our beloveds can be included in our daily lives. We can continue to nurture and nourish our relationship with them. It can be a place we can continue to give to and receive from. And I tell people this, and I mean it, I feel closer today to Arnie than I did on the day of his transition, because our relationship continues to evolve and expand. And so I love teaching people how to do that and feel like that connection with our beloveds can be everlasting.
That is such a great approach. And you've created such an incredible legacy for you and Arnie. I lost one of my heart dogs back in 2009, and I had bought this little sun catcher that I hang on my rear view mirror in my car. And every time if I get a new car, it goes in the new car, and I look at that thing probably almost every day and think of Buck. And my husband and I still talk about Buck. We remember his quirky personality. So I think that's really cool that you nurture that in your clients. I did want to ask you though about anticipatory grief, because I think this is a piece that we some of us might have a year or two where if we have an older pet, that we're kind of in that anticipatory grief stage. And then sometimes it's more sudden, like you mentioned in that case where you had 3 days notice. But talk to us about anticipatory grief and how you offer that service, because I was surprised to see that on your website.
Yes, that is such a difficult period. And anyone out there who's listening knows this, that what we are facing when we have a beloved who is getting older or who has a diagnosis, we feel very powerless. We feel out of control. We often feel a sense of dread. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Will something catastrophic happen? When we are experiencing anticipatory grief, depending on what's going on, we might become very depleted. We might be doing medications multiple times a day. We might have a lot of financial output as well. So there's a whole roller coaster for anticipatory grievers. And it's very hard for them to stay present with their beloveds, to stay connected. Many people start kind of pulling away because they're so upset. So working with anticipatory grievers, it's really powerful to help them, first of all, center their beloveds and figure out like, how can I stay connected? How can I give my animal a sense of normalcy, a sense that everything's okay? How can we build our relationship in these tender moments? Also, I help people with the practical logistical side of things. Of course, I'm not a veterinarian, so I don't give any like medical advice, but I can help people work through medical decision making. And particularly the big one for many people, if there's going to be a euthanasia decision, how can I possibly decide that? When is it right? I don't want to wait too long, etc. So really supporting kind of that decision making process. And then, of course, helping guardians take care of themselves, helping them really bring a lot of self-care and self-compassion so that they can stay regulated while this is going on. And in my opinion, anticipatory work is the most powerful work we can do because it actually does help make things a little easier after the transition. So I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge advocate of it. And just naming the term for people, anticipatory grief, is really powerful to say, hey, what you're experiencing is completely common and there's a word for it and a name for it. And now like this is what's happening to you. And that's really helpful for many people who are in that situation.
Yeah, I have a 21-year-old cat, and you just explained a lot to me and how I'm feeling, because she's healthy, but she's old, and you can see her every single day getting older and older and just weaker and struggling more. It's weird I think I appreciate it a little bit because there's part of me that's been able to lay some foundational work preparing for the inevitable. I mean, nothing lives forever. That's the reality. But it is a long and difficult road. And just sort of that, there's like a dark cloud hanging over our daily lives where, I mean, this is going to sound horrible, but we come home every day and it's like, all right, who's going upstairs to see if Tiger's still breathing? Like, because it's like that. And it's almost like a doom cloud that hangs over our head.
You are 100% right about that. And but for you, even just recognizing within yourself, and that's the grief. That doom cloud, that's the grief. Yeah. So that's why doing this kind of work is so impactful. And I do say to people, listen, not everybody gets the opportunity to have anticipatory grief. Not everybody gets to walk this road with their beloved. And it's such a sacred, powerful road we get to walk in this most tender time for them. And, really helping ourselves say, hey, this is tough, this is excruciating, and it's an honor to walk this road with my beloved. And that's so powerful in anticipatory grief, to really think about how you get to show up for them the way they have always shown up for you.
Yeah. Beth, what advice would you give friends or family members if you know someone who's just lost a pet? How can we best support that loved one or friend?
Well, let me remind everyone that if it's something that you would do for a human loss, let's go ahead and do that for any animal loss. So if you're a person who would send a sympathy card or send flowers or send a gift card to DoorDash, do anything you would do. Treat it as if it were a human loss, a partner, a child. That's one thing. Another thing to remember is that you don't need to fix this for them. You just need to be present. And by present, I mean you can send a text and say, hey, I'm thinking about you and Buck. I'm thinking about your wonderful relationship and all that I learned from them. You don't have to have any perfect magic words, but acknowledge that they're thinking about their beloved and use their beloved's name, And of course, any small gestures, sending a beautiful photograph or a portrait, anything like that is really meaningful and impactful. You don't have to have the right words, but please don't ignore that this is going on. It's okay to say, I really don't know what to say, but I know how much your relationship means to you, and I'm here for you anytime.
I was just going to say one of the nicest things that was done for us after we did lose Buck is our next door neighbors had dinner delivered to the house. And just knowing that we certainly didn't want to go out that night and didn't want to cook. And wow, that was just such a comforting gesture. So yeah, just the little things can make such a difference.
Yeah, it's just sort of being seen, right?
Yeah.
And there's, you've got other techniques too. You yourself, we were talking before we hopped on the camera, you're a big theater nerd, and you yourself have a background in storytelling, creative expression. And I think, you talk a bit about how telling stories about your pet can be part of the healing process. So can you explain a little bit about how that creative expression can play a role in the healing process?
Absolutely. My background is in the arts, and I bring a lot of that to my ideas and to how I work with people. Storytelling is, the oldest entertainment on the planet, right? Sitting around the fire telling stories. And so when we get to tell stories about our beloved, not only are we continuing their legacy, we're telling the world about them, we are helping bring their gifts, guidance, lessons, and teachings to the world, which is very powerful. It also is really great for our brain, and I'll tell you why. When we have a loss like this, our poor brain, it gets really interested in like what happened at the end and going over the details and like all those final last things, because that was the last time we interacted with them. And this is such a huge event. Our brain is trying to make sense. When we tell stories about their life, different parts of our brain light up and we make those pathways stronger to telling those stories. And so it's really supportive to bring more balance into our grief. So that's another powerful kind of brain way why we want to do that. But, I bring in storytelling, letter writing, a lot of letter writing to our beloveds and from our beloveds. I also love to use visual art. I love to do music things. So in my book, for example, in the index, you'll find, in addition to things like guilt and anger and jealousy and emotional things, there's a lot in there about art and creativity and creative ways to connect and use creativity to keep you connected and to express your grief.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a helpful conversation. Tell us a little bit about your book and where our viewers and listeners can find out more information about your services, Beth.
Sure. Well, my book is called Honoring Our Animals, which is Honoring Our Animals 365 Meditations for Healing After Pet Loss. It's a daily reader. So every single day, there's a little meditation here. There's a little bit of a wisdom and an invitation to take some sort of action step, to reflect about something, to write about something, to create something, or do something to feel more connected. So these are digestible, bite-sized reflections about all aspects of the emotions we feel in grief, as well as discovering parts of our identity, bringing in more self-compassion, and obviously staying close to our beloveds. So it's a beautiful gift for anybody who's experiencing a loss. It's also something you can use yourself either on a daily basis or go to that index and just look at some emotions that you want to target. So my book is available June 3rd, everywhere books are sold, at your local bookstore, at Amazon, Target, Walmart, bookshop.org, and that is where you can find the book. Also, we will be welcoming all of you to my Instagram community at Honoring Our Animals. I post twice a day original content about pet loss grief. I also have a monthly memorial service where you can join and submit the name of your beloveds to be read aloud in the service. I have a weekly newsletter that people love, getting that kind of boost on their Wednesday, boost on a Wednesday to get more empowerment and tips. And of course, if you'd like to work with me or go deeper, I do work with people one-on-one and in small cohort groups as well. So you can come to my website, honoringouranimals.com, or you can DM me on Instagram and we can set up a time to chat and see if we're a good fit to work together.
That is amazing. Beth, you are a busy, busy bee. I'm very impressed. Thank you so much for taking time out of that jam-packed schedule to have a few minutes with us today. I'm sure it was very helpful for a lot of our listeners out there. Thank you so much. You're one of those people I don't want to say, oh, hopefully you'll hear from me soon, but c'est la vie, right? Maybe you will.
I'm here if you need me.
Thank you. We do appreciate that.
Wow. Beth was born to do what she is doing. She's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. What a positive person to bring just great energy into difficult, overwhelmingly negative conversations. I found the conversation to be really helpful too. Tiger's really old, and I think it's good to start doing some of that pre-work, some of that anticipatory grief, and work through some of that. I think it'll help me out in the long run. So, definitely check out that book. I think that's a good one to just have on hand. I love a book with an index, like a really long book with an index, and you can just sort of pull out the pieces you need. I'm a sucker for an index. Who would have thought?
The product of the week.
And now it is time for the product of the week. And Kristen, I'm going to throw it to you. What do you got for us this week in the pet product world?
Okay, well, I thought I would go with a product that kind of had something to do with one of our guests today. So, we had a great conversation with Beth Bigler about pet loss and grieving, and I just love giving pet grief gifts. Like if a friend or family member loses a pet, I take it upon myself to kind of be stocked up at my house with gifts or cards, because I think what really helps people in the grieving process is to have their pet recognized by others. And so the one I wanted to share with you guys is from Erica Messer. She's got this whole line of pet grieving cards called Wolfie's Wish. And you can either get just like a simple, sweet greeting card to let the people know that you're thinking about them and their pet. And they also have this deck of cards. I'm showing, if you're watching us on YouTube or social, you'll see this, but they have this deck of cards that helps people with pet grief, where each day there's like a little sweet message about their pet. And you can kind of, use this as you're going through the grieving process. Come in a big deck of cards like this, or a little baby deck of cards. It's like 1 inch by 1 inch. But if you go to wolfieswish.com, there's a lot of other pet grief gift type of things. I just think it's a sweet gesture to show the person who's grieving the loss of their pet that you're thinking about them and that you understand what they're going through.
Yeah, don't send them like a Hallmark condolence card that's like, sorry you lost your grandma, and you cross it out and put pet.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That's my advice. That's my addition.
So uplift us with your product of the week, Chris.
Yeah, well, I've got a pretty simple one, but I've been seeing a lot of questions about sort of interactive feeders for dogs, and this one's inspired by one of my coworkers. They bring their dog into work, and I saw this one, and it's a pretty common one. It's from Outward Hound. It's called the Orbi, and it's like this hard plastic but moldable type thing where it looks like a light bulb folded out, and you sort of fill from like the bottom flask side of the light bulb, fill it with the food, and then you push it down and it becomes like a mushroom cap. And they have to like, you set it down and it's sort of weighted and gyroscopic. So they really have to like push it around to get just like a little bit of food out. So it's great for enrichment. Definitely a puzzle toy. They really have to figure out what they're doing here, because it's always going to kind of flip back over and start rolling around again. Great for fast eaters who eat so fast that they puke. So if you have a dog that just can't control themselves, this is a great solution. And it's a great little rewarding brain tease. So this is like one of those things where if you work from home or in a dog-friendly office like I do, and you really need like 45 minutes to buckle down and get some stuff done, and you really just got to buckle down, you fill this thing up, you set it to the side, and it is good for your dog. So check it out. It's Outward Hound. MSRP is like $13 on this bad boy. So you're not going to be breaking. Yeah, you're not going to be breaking the bank on it. Link will be in the show notes as always. And I also love the name Orbi. Get the Orbi. Yeah. Reminds me of Furbies. Remember Furbies?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Those things were demented.
I'm surprised you're old enough to remember Furbies.
I'm older than I look. I'm turning 33 this year. It's spooky.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had a Furby. That thing still haunts me. Yeah, my cats hated the Furbies. You turned it on and the cats went insane. They went absolutely sicko mode. Yeah.
Q&As.
All right, Kristen, we have arrived at our favorite part of the episode. That's right. We're going to answer two questions, two whole questions from our lovely audience. And Kristen, I know what they're thinking. How do I get my question answered by Chris and Kristen? Well, it is quite simple. You're going to head on over to petsadlife.org/podcast. Scroll on down to the bottom of that page, or if you're feeling incredibly brave as what did we talk about today? I don't know. As brave as Chris is Googling Scarlett Johansson puppy date and keeping that on his search history and his algorithm, you can record a voice memo. You can record a voice memo. We've had a couple come in lately, so you'd be able to hear your question played live on these airwaves. So, Kristen, I've got a question for you. Well, I don't, but Samantha L. from Chicago does. Yeah, Samantha L.
Hey, Samantha.
We're doing last initials now. That's new. Samantha from Chicago asks, my dog keeps scratching and licking his paws. Could it be allergies? Question mark.
Hi, Samantha. Yes. If your dog is persistently licking their paws, that's kind of a classic sign of allergies in dogs. But there are a lot of other possible causes that you should consider. If we think about allergies first, it could be an environmental allergen to pollen or dust mites or mold. It could be a food allergy. It could be a flea allergy. Even if your dog or cat were to be bitten by a single flea, some pets are allergic to those flea bites. So that could be it. But it also could be just some kind of irritant, maybe cleaning products, lawn chemicals. It could be a bacteria or a yeast infection between their toes, because that happens sometimes. A foreign object or something stuck in the paw. So I would say take a look at the paws carefully and just kind of do a quick visual to see if there's something stuck, or if there's if you can see a redness or irritation. And then I'm gonna say, call your vet if you're not sure. And if the licking persists, definitely call your vet, because what happens a lot of times is when our dogs lick their paws a lot, they actually can break the skin and then get a bacterial infection on top of, the allergy or whatever the irritant is. So hopefully it's just one of the little sand spurs caught between the toes. But obviously, if not, then I would definitely talk to your veterinarian. There's lots of really great over-the-counter soothing products too, like from Vetericyn. I love their products. They're not the only ones. But if it's something more serious, your vet will prescribe a topical or medication.
Great advice as always, Kristen. You are so smart.
Well, you're pretty smart too, Chris, and I've got a question where you can show off your smarts here.
Okay.
This one comes, another Chicago listener. This one comes from James.
We're huge in the Windy City.
We are big.
We're huge in the Windy City.
This one comes from James R. He says, I've noticed my cat is drinking more water than usual and urinating frequently. Could this be a sign of a health issue?
Yes. Any change in the bathroom behavior of your animal is always going to be a sign of a health issue. Now, there's varying degrees of this. What is a health issue? Truly, like it could be a UTI. It's very straightforward. Usually, they'll give you either a pill or a single one-time antibiotic injection. But it could be more severe than that. This could be a sign of diabetes. This could be a sign of kidney failure. There's all sorts of stuff. But basically, the blanket advice is if your pet is doing different bathroom stuff, whether they're a dog or a cat, if they're going more frequently, less frequently, changes in the color of the stool, the consistency of the stool, changes in the color of the urine, if you see little specks of blood in the litter box or in the grass outside, this is all in the realm of get a vet appointment. And like I said, UTI is no big deal. This happens with Tiger all the time. We'll notice that she doesn't eat as much. She's drinking so much water. She's in and out of the litter box. And I'm always like, is this, the renal failure that'll finally take out the 21-year-old cat? Take her in. They're like, no, she's just a UTI queen. And they give her a shot. And within the next 12 hours, she's back to being herself. So don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to see your vet. That's what they're there for. And I'm sure everything's going to work out for you, James.
Yeah. And I want to back you up on that. Don't hesitate because things can escalate pretty quickly.
Yes. Even a UTI can start as a nothing and then go untreated and become incredibly serious. So go. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. In fact, that's probably what your vet bill's going to be. So head over.
Maybe
head
you
over,
should collect. It should collect.
Yeah, maybe you need to
$200
collect the
and give it to your vet.
$200 to pay for the vet bill. Oh man, well, Kristen, that wraps up our show. That's it.
Oh, it does. Okay.
That's all we got.
Believe it or not, next show is going to be in June. We're in almost official summer.
I feel like I missed my opportunity to do the Justin Timberlake "It's Gonna Be May" joke, but hey, time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, we're already in June. Wow. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna rest. We're gonna take some naps. But fear not, dear listener. We will be back here next week, every Tuesday. We never miss. Until then, be kind to yourself, be kind to your pets, and Kristen.
Yep. Until next week, like Chris said, farewell.
Farewell. Farewell.
Farewell.
Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonifati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and Dog TV.